Welcome back to another episode of Excuse My Grandma. It's Kim and my co-hosts,
Grandma Gail.
Okay, today we are joined by Natasha Cornstein. Grandma and I are really excited about this. She's the CEO of Blushington. I've gone and got my makeup done recently. It looked gorgeous. And Blushington has beauty services and in person in New York City, as well as online. Natasha has been at Blushington for a few years now, so she's going to talk about that and her roles at Blushington and her journey as a CEO. So Natasha, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here today.
And there's a lot of background here, familial relations, right?
Well, that's true because I know Natasha since she's about your age. I've seen her son grow up. I love her husband.
So crazy.
Matter of fact, your brother actually, he got tickets for him in New Orleans to go to the games.
Oh, that's
because
right.
Mark
Yes,
is friendly with the coach down.
he
in
represents
Tulane.
him.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so we have a whole way, and plus the fact I have a special spot for her in-laws. So it's really a pleasure.
How did you meet them?
I met them. It's very interesting, Natasha. I don't even know if you know the story.
I
Your
don't think so.
in-laws were very, very friendly with my parents.
I don't think I knew that.
That's how I met them. And my dad was always a person who worried about the sun. And your father-in-law, unfortunately,
The exact opposite.
used to sit in the sun in Capri, and that's where they used to spend their summers.
With baby oil.
And my father used to be running over to him all the time, putting a hat on his head, doing whatever. And from there, when the next generation got friendly, we became friendly. And I've known them for a very long time, and they're very special people and wonderful. They love Natasha from the time she met Mark. It was always Natasha this, Natasha that. So it's great to have you on today. But now let's talk about you.
We keep it here in the family. Excuse my grandma.
Absolutely. And I do have to say you were at my wedding.
Yes, I was. And she is as
Wow.
beautiful then as she is today. So,
Well, I could say the same about you.
well, thank you. Thank you.
What do you
sweetheart.
remember about the wedding?
Oh my gosh, I just remember how
So
beautiful
long
she
ago.
was.
We were at the Rainbow Room.
Right, exactly. Oh, no,
It was
my
beautiful.
parents
70
engaged
degrees.
there.
It was
Oh,
beautiful.
that's so nice.
On December 1st.
That's rare too. Wow.
Yeah, it was very special.
It was beautiful. And that's such a beautiful location, with the cityscape in the background.
Yes.
It's beautiful. And their marriage, how many years is it?
23.
All right, so
Wow.
It's been amazing.
So that's a good journey. We like
Yes.
that. And I also love that she's become a woman in business. She started out as a mom too, let's face it. Her primary thing was as a wife and as a mother, but she's been terrific in business, even just when in the early years supporting Mark. So
Yes,
in
I
his
worked
endeavors.
with my husband.
Oh wow,
which-
I need to hear about that.
for over
Right.
a decade.
How does that differ from what you're doing now?
Well, it was completely different. It was
Right.
my husband's company.
Right.
He started it out of college. He worked 2 jobs. So he worked at the New York City Sports Commission and was entrepreneurial at heart and started his own sports agency, recruiting international players to the NBA. So he would work all day, go out, he was a real partier, and then he would set his alarm and wake up for European hours. And that's how he built his agency.
And I think in all fairness to Natasha, she was the power behind the man. Because I remember when that was an early time in your marriage, she was ever present in his business and really knew how to run it. He might have been looking and recruiting, but she was running the nitty gritty. So
Is that how you felt about
kudos
it?
to the women.
I don't know about that.
No.
I think, and that's what's really different about my business
Right.
today, actually, is he was definitely the boss.
Mhm.
He
Right.
did all the business, he did all of the contract negotiation, and I got to listen in and learn.
Right.
And I did all the nitty gritty,
Right.
finding players
Right,
there.
right. So supporting
homes
role
and-
now to starring role.
I
Right.
always say he was Jerry, I was Renee.
Wait, I don't know the reference.
Oh no, you're too young. Jerry Maguire?
Oh, duh. I love that movie.
Okay, good.
But it wasn't top
I'm
of
like,
mind
oh my
for-
gosh,
no,
am
no,
I
no.
that old?
No, I just
No,
like
you're not. You're not.
He was a Jerry, she was the Renee. Okay, but
Right.
now You're
Now
both,
he's
They're
built
both of them.
his next phase, a tremendous business,
Yeah.
brokering sales of minority ownerships in professional teams.
so cool.
And I went from sports to beauty
Which
and became
which
a
is
CEO.
exactly, which I think is very exciting. I
Thank
love
you.
that young women today are really doing this and are able to do it versus when I was first married. We never even thought that the opportunity was there. Many people were qualified. And it certainly became more so during the feminist era in the late 70s. But they didn't have the people weren't really doing it as much. Today, I would say probably it's 50-50. I think there are more women in certain fields working now than men. Certainly in medicine and law. I mean, they're really out there. So kudos to all the women
Thank
today.
you.
I'm very proud of you all.
Yeah, I want to hear a little bit about that journey as a
Right.
female CEO. Did you feel like there were any hurdles there, kind of as you're saying, or did you actually find any unique opportunities or advantages?
So I think I'll start with telling you how I joined Blushington.
Yeah.
I was in Los Angeles. I was the spokesperson for my prior company, and we were opening an office in LA. And my publicist said at the time, "You're 40 years old, you need a headshot. I can't sign iPhone pictures of you anymore. And you have to get your hair and makeup done." And I sort of went begrudgingly. She said, "There's this place, Blushington." And I opened that door, and it was love at first sight. I mean, I never felt better. I know you just had that experience. I was in, I was out. I loved how I looked. And makeup can be tricky. You need someone to really listen to you. And that's the experience I got. And the very next day, I was having breakfast with probably a woman your age, as a courtesy to someone in New York. And when I love something, I rave about it. I said, "I love this place, Blushington." She said, "I do their PR."
So funny.
I said, "That is so serendipitous." I said, "Can you please make an introduction?" And she made it that day. I spent 3 months getting to know the owners. They flew to New York.
Wow.
And 3 months later, they hired me as their CEO.
Smartest thing they ever did.
Thank you, Gail.
Smartest thing.
Grandma Gail, thank you for the
Absolutely.
support. And I always tell young women that your next hello can be your future. If you listen to people, if you have an open mindset, you never know where one conversation or one experience can take
I agree
you.
with that.
It
How
changed
did you
my
know
life.
Sure.
that was the opportunity versus I'm sure you meet a ton of people and have a ton of introductions.
A ton of introductions, blessed to be able to travel and meet interesting people every week and all the time. There was something magical about Blushington. I loved the purpose of it. The purpose is to make people feel beautiful and confident, not to cover up or change
Right.
how you look, but to make you feel like the best version of yourself.
So you feel like your
So-
values kind of have to align with the
100%.
values of the company and like the ethos.
And you evidently
Yeah.
liked the product. The
Yes.
products that they did were clean, natural, I'm sure.
We've really stayed very committed to championing female founded brands and the independent niche brands. Our founder has like a tremendous knack for discovering brands before they hit the circuit, so
Right.
to speak.
I just went and I felt like it also kind of took away that intimidating aspect of makeup. I think that people can go in. I thought it was going to be a 2-hour ordeal and like I wouldn't make it to my event that I had on time. I had so much extra time. I had never been early to anything in my life, but I was early to the event.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
I'm going to look up who did your makeup.
Well, she was great. And I even then said, well, I did my own hair at home. Do you have a few minutes to touch up my hair? And they had a hairstylist do my hair too.
I love it.
Yeah, you
Also
were going to an event that night. I do
I was going
remember.
to like a Netflix
I think
premiere.
an important
Yeah.
event.
Right.
Yeah, a screening, a Netflix
Right.
screening. But Sabrina Carpenter was there, which was cool. She has the best hair. So
And
I was
my
like, I
team
want big
was
hair.
so excited.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
I stay very close to my team.
Which is great.
And I think for any CEO or leader of a company, you have to stay very close to the day-to-day and to your people. Now, as your company gets bigger and bigger, you may
harder.
not have as much time, but I've always prioritized working reception, sitting at the front desk, serving champagne,
Right.
and knowing the experience.
Yeah.
And also who's coming in and
Yes.
what their reaction is, which I think is
Yes.
very important. If they, I like the idea that you're out quickly. I can't stand when they labor over each eyelash and each line. For me, Kimmy, it does great makeup. She's terrific on her own.
Well,
She's
you're
terrific.
both gorgeous.
But I don't. I do it in 2 seconds. I feel like I'm in the quick zone. Last night we did something together.
We were just filming a video, like
Right.
a get ready with me
It was
video.
so
Right.
And I was like, okay, we'll go step by step and just talk about, we were talking about New Year's resolutions or something. And I was only on like my foundation and she was done.
I was done.
I'm in your lane.
There's nothing else to talk about. I mean, I put a little of this on, a little of that, because I find, and this is something we could talk about, as you get older, it's better to have less on your face. I don't know what your group,
totally agree
because
with you.
of lines and all that. The makeup just sinks into those lines and accentuates it.
Or is it about the products you're using?
Well,
You know-
no, I think it's just basically faces they're not a clean, like yours is perfectly smooth. Natasha's is perfectly smooth.
Wow.
Mine is not. So you can't put too much on, even no matter what product. The lightest product, you have
But
to
can
be
I just
careful.
say also, like, I'm not using tons and tons of product. I'm just doing a lot of steps.
I know you are.
So it's not like I'm using an entire bottle on my face.
No,
it's
but
like
you're
I
very
could
good
use
with the
a
brushes.
dot, but like I want to make sure I'm doing concealer, foundation, bronzer, contour, blush, lip liner, lipstick, lip gloss. Like I just
But
like doing all the
because
steps.
you know how to do it. If
Yeah.
I do that, first of all, I can't see in the mirrors. So basically,
No.
whatever goes on is going on. It's not I have a big issue with. I can never go to certain hotels if they don't have a magnifying
Mirror?
thing in the bathroom. The boutique hotels for me are out. I'm
That's so
40 years
funny.
too old for boutique
Or
hotels.
if there's a light switch like this, I'm not as inclined to want to stay
It's
there.
very, very hard.
But on the makeup routine, and I think that's part of the beauty of Blushington, is you will sit down with your artist and they'll, in just a few minutes, they're trained to really try to understand who you are, what type of experience you're looking for. And I love that you have these steps in a routine. I think Grandma Gail and I have a very similar routine. I call it the 5-minute no
Right.
makeup.
Yeah.
I use 5 products, I'm
Right.
in, I'm out, and you look like you're barely any makeup on. You just look
She
gorgeous.
does
Thank you.
knows how to do it.
I feel like my 5-minute routine is what I'm using every day. But if I'm going to an event, if I'm going out
Oh,
on
yeah.
Saturday night,
Oh,
if I'm
sure.
recording a podcast, that's not going to be my 5-minute routine.
Right.
Like that, then I'm going to do more.
Right.
So I kind of feel like it's nice to have at least a few different in your Rolodex of
Totally.
like, okay, my no makeup, my holiday party look, and my date night look, or whatever. You
Absolutely.
wanna do. But I don't know. I think, and that's just someone who I love makeup. I think it's fun. Some people don't want all of the steps, but
Well,
I think
it's
also
harder. It's harder for some people. You're very good with it. A lot of other people don't.
it's the TikTok generation.
Yes,
I feel like all I do
exactly.
is look at videos of doing makeup. Yeah.
I know.
That is really the truth.
Yeah.
That is the truth.
It really is. And
So-
so we try sort of that fast, rapid TikTok, and we just dial it down
Down.
a little and listen for a few minutes, which I think is a
Mhm.
little bit of a lost art,
Yeah.
listening.
Now, where is your place in Manhattan? Because I know you do have a place.
We
in Manhattan.
do. We have a flagship on 57th Street between 8th and 9th.
That's
so
where I went.
right by
Oh, that's where
Columbus Circle.
Yeah, okay.
Tons of transportation. People can come
Right.
by subway, bus, walk, drive. It's super easy.
But
There
they have to
used
make
to-
an appointment, right? I mean,
Or you can walk in.
Oh, really?
Actually, yes.
Oh, good.
So we really try to accommodate and make it super easy.
that's-
And I think what I'm really excited to share is that we became a franchisor. And so this past year, we started our sales process and sold 3.
Amazing.
One will be opening in Boca
Oh,
and
great.
2 in Houston,
Amazing.
and just
Well, those are the
incredible
areas.
women.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
that's the areas. That's the growing areas. Besides, everyone wants to be in the Sunshine State now.
Yes.
I feel like Boca's
And-
gonna be
and
so popular.
It's going to be so
Yeah.
popular in Boca, and in Houston is where all the young people are and the tech people are. It's definitely a
100%.
terrific market. Great.
And they love their glam.
Mhm.
yeah, well, sure. Well,
Yeah,
yes.
true.
everything has to be bigger.
Big
than-
in Texas.
Exactly.
Big in Texas.
And I feel like Blushington has evolved to kind of be called a beauty tech brand. What does that mean to you?
So we have the brick and mortar beauty, that's really the heart and soul of Blushington is that in-person service. during the pandemic, we had to,
Change.
think fast and evolve. And I think that's something really important to note as a CEO. You always have to really be understanding how your business is performing in the moment, but always be planning for the future and innovating, but innovating in ways that make sense for your business. On March 13th of 2020, I sent a note to customers that we would be closed for 2 weeks.
Right.
I'm sorry, on March 13th, I sent it. And we bought, we bought disposable brush sets, who knows where they are.
Yeah.
And I woke up that Sunday and realized we're in a total crisis and closed all our stores. And within 30 days, we had transitioned to an online platform.
Right.
We started an online academy to certify makeup artists. We
that was
created
clever.
shop and shops.
Okay.
And I actually started, and I really encourage collaboration, even amongst competitors. So when the pandemic started, I reached out to all my competitors and created what I call the Beauty and Wellness Forum, because who had been through a global pandemic?
Right, that's exactly.
And
we
we
just
got
talking about
on
this.
who had been through it.
Right.
So we got on the phone and I brought in experts day after day after day, crisis
it.
communications,
Right.
severance,
Right. All the things
how to
that came out of
transform.
this.
And it was so collaborative. So I always say there's always room,
Yeah.
right, for competitors, and
I like that.
try to be collaborative.
Well, Kimmy created this during COVID because our podcast, she was working for a news agency, and then everything closed in
A
2000.
TV network. Yes, but I was still working there when I started to use my
But it
network.
was out of the office.
Yeah.
So everybody had
Yeah.
to create different
Yeah,
things.
a lot of things came out of COVID.
Out of COVID. Well, a lot of
Right.
bad
Yeah.
things and a lot of good things.
That's exactly
Creativity
right.
came out of it.
So much innovation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think what you guys have built is so special.
Thank you.
And I like
Yes.
what you're saying. You can't stay still. What was good yesterday necessarily isn't going to be good next week. So we
Right.
have to move with the times. We have to see what's happening.
Love that.
Yeah.
Hopefully the robots won't take over putting the makeup on us, but whatever. You
Well,
never know.
you never know.
Yeah,
You
and
never know.
Blushington
But for
can
the
incorporate
moment,
it.
I think it's really interesting. There are
Right.
businesses that will become obsolete
Right.
and will be replaced very quickly. And until someone is doing your makeup on the computer,
Yeah.
I like to say we're a little bit Amazon proof.
Yeah,
Even
yeah.
though I love Amazon.
We all love Amazon.
You
Yes.
mentioned the cleaning of the brushes and the disposable
Yes.
brush sets. I actually think about this a lot because I'm a germaphobe, and that comes
So
from
am
my
I.
family. Okay.
100%.
How do they make sure at Blushington, since they're doing so many people's makeup, that they're cleaning it between each client and have those, I guess, things in place?
So it's a great question. We have very strict hygiene
Oh, sure.
protocols. It is crucial. We keep the store immaculate, we keep the tools immaculate, and also all of the makeup palettes and products. And you have to have real regulation around whether you're scooping a lipstick off.
Right,
Everything gets sanitized. Now, when it comes to brushes, yes, I am fastidious about the brushes. That is the tool. That is our, craft. And so we have very set steps of cleaning and
That's good to
sanitation,
know.
sanitization, and we also have a lot of brush sets.
Yeah.
So you're going to be regularly rotating your brush
Right.
sets, and there's deep cleaning.
Well,
Yes.
Yes,
No, that's
super
good to know.
important.
That's important.
Because
so
I'm
many
sure,
infections, especially around the eyes, and with all the issues today, everybody's allergic to something.
right?
So it's very important to keep
It's a
everything sanitized.
critical part
Yeah.
of training and
Yeah.
something that we're always ongoing training about. Yeah.
So,
Great
as
question.
part of Excuse My Grandma, we have a few segments that we do. So, we would
Okay.
love to bring you along on some of those. So, the first is the Grandma Report. This week, we're discussing an article that Forbes had on work love and the parallels between them. So, I feel like you'll have a lot to say on this. And it kind of talks about the similarities between professional and romantic relationships. And
Interesting.
you've had that merged with your
Yes.
husband
I did
too. So the first bit is that both work and love involve a lot of commitment and communication and mutual growth. So with your husband and you have your son who's in college now, do you agree with that, I guess, concept that you kind of have to have the balance of both to have such a strong career and family life?
So I think we hear this term, and I don't know if I haven't read the article, so I may not understand the concept, but we hear this talked about all the time, work-life balance. And I think that is a very stressful term to throw around. And I actually don't find it for myself very helpful. I think what it comes down to for me is about your priorities. And you can't prioritize everything on the same day.
Right.
For me, the root of my priorities, my family, my work, my friendships, our community. We have a charity that my husband and my son and I run together, restoring outdoor basketball courts. But I think that again, life you prioritize, and there may be days where Blushington is my priority.
Come in first,
Right.
or comes in second.
That's exactly right.
That's how to make it work. If it's always one-sided, then the marriage won't work, or the kids feel left out. So it has to be something. Or I'm sure when Natasha, you have to be somewhere, Mark takes over when your son was home.
We're a real team.
It's a team. That's what I was going to say. You have to be a team, especially. I mean, I didn't have this in my generation, but your generations, everybody's used to both people working. For the most part, most couples work, whether it be the primary breadwinner or the equally putting it in the same amount. But you've learned how to do it, and I think you have to respect each other's relationship and business relationships so that you know when to make yours a priority at home and when to say, listen, you have some time, you go about your business, don't worry, I can handle it, or I'll make dinner. You have a meeting, go ahead, I'll cover. You have to sort of cover for each other, I think.
You have to be a team.
A team.
And whether it is in business,
right.
No business runs without a great team.
Right.
And in marriage, I think part of what makes my marriage so incredible for us is we've been a team since day one.
Right.
And the love, the loyalty, and keeping the passion and the shared values is crucial. And I will say, we've talked about women coming into the workforce. Fathers are now so much more involved
with their kids.
With their kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Every sporting event, every dad is there.
Right.
When I was growing up, my dad was working and my mom came.
And they didn't make the time. That was not their role.
It wasn't even a consideration, like you said.
Correct.
It wasn't an option.
It was, and it really wasn't anything that anybody thought about. But as the times have gone on and you're equal partners in bringing home the money, you both have to have equal relationships and stand in on certain times when the other one can't. So I think it's very, very, and also some men now stay home and raise families, and if the wife is the big breadwinner,
depends what you're better at. And
exactly.
What you like more,
exactly.
Yeah.
We have plenty of friends like that.
I don't think there should be any titles anymore. I'm so happy that the younger generation is doing that.
I'm actually surprised to hear you say that.
I think in life and in business, emotional intelligence sometimes trumps everything. To be successful in relationships, to be successful in business, you have to understand people. And I think that comes from being very, very aware. And so I would say emotional intelligence is crucial in every aspect of your life.
You agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the article lastly kind of talks about the impact on well-being, so that the quality of our work or the quality of our life at home really impacts our happiness and life satisfaction. Have you seen that it's enhanced or hindered your life at times?
I think it's crucial to do what you love.
Yeah.
And it's going to maybe be different things at different times in your lives. I mean, when I first came out of college, I won a fellowship in New York. It was in public affairs. I was in news also. I worked on the overnight assignment desk. I mean, talk about the lowest job in the newsroom.
Yeah.
That was really tough. I was newly married, but I was so passionate about the news. I had wanted to be a broadcaster. And I did it, and it ran its course. So I think that it's important to do what you're passionate about. Blushington is not work for me. It's a way of life. I get up every morning excited about it.
Amazing. I agree.
Well, I also think you're more mature. So,
That's exactly right.
with maturity, you realize the business in front of you is really what you're enjoying. The others was steps up to that.
Yes.
And that's how you look at, that's how I look at life. What you liked when you were in your late 20s or early 30s isn't necessarily where you're going to end up in your 40s or 50s or 60s in the workforce. So this was a maturing thing. You saw a different pattern, and
Yes.
now you're really involved with a whole thing that you love and that you can put your stamp on, which I think is great as a CEO. I think it's terrific. You put your own individuality in this.
It's an amazing journey. And when I was in my 20s, I had a great friend that was in her late 70s. And she would always say to me, the journey is the destination. And I never understood what it meant. And now I understand.
You're getting to understand. It's very hard when you're young to understand.
Yes, it really is.
I think the journey is important, and I think like the concept of paying your dues and all of that. But I also think you don't have to torture yourself in something you don't like and stay in something for longer than you.
Well, it depends
really
on your
should.
circumstances. You know,
Yes.
sometimes you have to pay for your meals or your rent. If you're lucky enough to not have to worry about that, then you don't have to spend one day being tortured.
Doing what you love is a luxury.
But it is a luxury.
But now we're gonna move on to our next segment, Grandma Gail's voicemail. So this is a longer form listener question that we can really give someone a more curated answer from us, and we're gonna have your help on that today. So I'm gonna play that for us now.
Hi, Kim and Grandma Gail. I love your podcast and would love both of your advice and help on my problem. So I'm in my early 30s and I've been dating my boyfriend for about 5 years. He started his medical school residency, so he's working long and intense hours. I've known this was coming, and I love him dearly, so I want to support him. And we've talked about engagement and everything soon. But now that residency is actually happening, I'm finding myself feeling lonely and overwhelmed. I want to support his work and his dreams, and I'm so proud of him, but I'm beginning to feel frustrated at how little I see him and how much effort I find myself putting into the relationship, and it feels disproportionate. What else do you think I can do to be accepting of this phase of our relationship? And what can I ask him within reason to do to make this easier on me? And if you have any tips on still spending quality time with each other while one of us is working such long hours, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so to reiterate that, this girl has been dating her boyfriend for 5 years. He's in medical school residency. What can she do to be more accepting of this phase of their relationship, and what can she ask her partner to make things easier and spend some quality time?
Are you going to ask me first?
Sure.
Okay, firstly, I think she has to understand when you go with somebody who's in the medical profession, there are 6 or 7 years of hell, and that's just the name of the game. And if you're willing to go with someone she's been with this gentleman for 5 years, she's put the investment in already. It's a very tedious job to be a doctor's wife. Hopefully she has a job herself, so she's busy during the week. I would certainly recommend that. If she doesn't have a full-time job, she better find one, because it's a very, and I know doctors' wives, it's a lonely time in the beginning. They have to set up their practice. It's a very difficult time. Unless you're a dermatologist, you're on call all the time. So I think she has to rethink her thinking. Maybe this, I hate to say it, maybe this wasn't the right choice for her. And
I don't think you just break up with someone because they have a hard job, because everybody
No,
ebbs
it's
and
not a
flows.
matter of that. It's not a matter. This is a life. A doctor's life is very different than going from 9 to 5 or 9 to 7. It's not like working on Wall Street. This is a vocation that he has chosen. And I think that you have to know that. You're marrying the medical profession. So that's why very many doctors' wives become their nurses in their office. Because then they do see their husbands much more often. They do the scheduling. I know most of the doctors I go to, their wives are working with them in the office as either as a manager or as something to do with them. And you know, it's the time that you spend together should be quality time. I don't think I shouldn't say this because I don't know his schedule, but usually I'm sure he has at least one day off. And I think that's the day they should concentrate just on chilling out and being together, whether it's a walk in the park or just take a little time, go for a swim if you're near the water, maybe cook each other. If you both like to cook and do something together. And but you've put 5 years in. I hope you know that it's just the beginning.
I have to tell you, as the daughter of a physician,
Oh, good,
I really
Natasha.
lived this firsthand. And my mom moved to the United States when she was 19 years old to attend Columbia.
Wow.
She and my dad met on an airplane, had 4 dates, eloped,
Wow.
and
I
got
love
married.
it. I love it. That's
So
a
she did
romance.
not know, and a romance of a lifetime. They're married 56 years.
Wow.
So are my in-laws, by the
Right.
way, and
Amazing.
2 amazing couples. And she was very lonely.
Yeah.
The difference was she was married and they were starting to have a
Right.
family. I have an
That's-
older sister.
right.
Now, your listener can't go back in time,
Right.
but advice I would give to anyone dating is I wouldn't date someone longer than a year.
Mhm.
How much time do you need to know
Right.
if this is the one? It's different for everybody, but time is valuable and you never get it back.
I've said
So-
this all the time, Natasha.
Well,
I agree with you.
agree with you. And I think that, you know, we're always evolving. Who we were when I was
Right.
27 and Mark was 30, we're very different people
Right.
today,
That's
but we
right.
made the commitment to grow together.
Right.
But we dated for 7 months. We were engaged for 7 months. And we're married 23 years.
How old were you when you met?
I was 26.
Oh wow. Okay.
I got engaged when I was 27
Mhm.
and married the same year. He actually proposed on my birthday.
Oh, that's
Oh, so did my
sweet.
husband.
He-
Proposed
that's
on my
so
birthday.
cool. How
That's
did he do? How
Yeah,
did he propose?
But I was 21.
That's like my mom.
I mean, we didn't believe in long-term things. It's a
Right.
completely different thing. He proposed. I don't even know where he proposed. He proposed. I think he took me to a show actually at it used to be called the Americana in New York, and he took out. He didn't have a ring. He was in school, and he was in
Right.
graduate school, and he said, "I want to, would you marry me, whatever?" And I said to myself, "Well, I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe I shouldn't." And he said, "Well, here's my mother's Wellesley ring."
Oh.
So to this day, I have it in the vault, and I said, it's the only time I ever got close to going to Wellesley. So I
love
loved
that.
it. And eventually I got
You
it
should
done.
turn it
I
into
still
something
have,
cool.
actually, I still have the Wellesley ring, and I don't have my first engagement ring. But
What happened to the first engagement ring? It got
I got bigger.
Bigger and
I
bigger
watered-
and bigger.
I watered it. I kept watering it like a plant.
That's all you have to do?
I watered it. It came to be a beautiful
and
thing.
poof.
And
Yes.
poof, it got bigger.
The Wellesley ring, is it ugly?
It's a little blue
Oh.
ring with Wellesley with little tiny
That's
seed
kind of
pearls.
cool.
Well, I don't want to walk around. I went to Syracuse. How am I going to show people?
What a
Here I
great
went-
school,
Here
by
I
the
went
way.
to Wellesley. I think what we should tell this girl is
Yeah.
you've stuck in here 5 years. If he really is the one, hang in there, but get something to occupy yourself that you really enjoy during the week, because his hours are very, very long, and they're going to be nighttime as well.
Right. And
Right.
I would add to that and get a commitment.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you're in
Oh,
it
right.
and you want to get married, if
He has
you're
to
going
put
to
the
be
ring on.
sticking around
Yeah.
Right.
through
Make sure
what
it's-
is a super challenging time,
Correct.
make sure you're not the one that slogged it out and,
And then
then
he says
6
goodbye.
months later he meets somebody else and is
Totally.
married and you've now spent
5, 6
years
years, exactly. That's,
of your life.
which I don't think you should be doing anyway.
We're on the same page.
Okay.
You should know in a year.
Exactly. 6 months is more than enough.
There you go.
So now we're gonna do our Ask Grandma Anything. People wrote these in on Instagram, and they're a little bit shorter, quicker,
Okay.
more fun questions. What are some non-basic or not boring first date questions?
Date questions?
First date questions.
Yes,
So
Natasha.
like besides, where are you from? Where'd you go to school? What do you do for work?
Yeah, but I think everybody has to ask, what do you do for work? At some point, I don't know, unless you're in your early 20s, who cares where you went to school? But I think you do have to know, what do you do for a living? What are your activities? Actually, they could say, what do you like to do in your spare
I
time?
hate that question.
You do?
I watch reality TV and I go out for dinner. Like, what do you do in your spare time?
Well, I could say I watched
But
murder movies
then
on
you seem
television.
really, you don't seem
No, but
interesting.
at 20, well, you can't make up something.
Well, you have to be yourself.
Exactly.
And that's when I watch the young women that I'm friends with or that are in my business, and I'm sort of on the outside looking in at dating and what it's become. It's like
terrible.
you have to curate yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And, everything seems to be very premeditated because it's text.
Well,
I remember, I had a 3-hour conversation with my husband, and that's what got the romance started. And
Yeah.
it was, we didn't
Right.
write a text, delete it, write
Well,
it,
that's
delete
just
it.
chemistry. Like, we wouldn't have had that conversation with somebody else. It just flowed.
It flowed.
also, they
and
wouldn't have it
so-
today because today nobody would talk on the phone for 3 hours.
This was in person or on the phone?
No, it
you're
was on the
saying?
phone.
On the phone.
Okay.
It was
Well,
on
we
the
used to use the
phone.
phone all the time.
Exactly. And when we
Yeah.
really talked and listened, and nothing was curated.
But
And
it's
I think
different.
it's a lot of pressure right now. And I
Yeah.
think people just reject each other really quickly or are looking for somebody that doesn't exist,
Yes.
Yeah,
So-
but I do totally, as someone with like a slight social anxiety, you want to be like, okay, I at least can bring up these few things when we're on the
But
date.
what
so
would
you're
you
not-
say? That's
I-
interesting.
And I still kind of do this, not with my boyfriend, but like with people I haven't seen in a while. I'll look at my calendar and be like, okay, what's 3 things I've done in the last month that was kind of interesting? Because people like storytelling.
Okay.
And I feel like when you're so busy and then you sit down with someone, you're like, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. But if you kind of do a little prep work before a date of like, I just went on this vacation last month, I could talk about that. This is also, could be such bad advice, but I did a really interesting thing at work earlier this week, and my friends and I are going to a Broadway show this weekend. Then those are things you're
Okay.
interested in, you can kind of
Okay.
bring up with them. That's what I would say.
Okay. All right.
What do you do when your daughter has a boyfriend you don't like?
I think you have to speak up. I really do. I think speak up in the beginning. If there's something really you don't like about them, if it's just the way he parts his hair or the way he wears his shirt or ties his shoe, I don't think that's legitimate. But I think there are absolute things that you might think is negative. It might not be that he's right for you in your mother's opinion on many levels. So I think she should speak up early on, and then hopefully you listen. I don't think you can keep reiterating it because then you just become a nag and people turn it off. But I do think you should voice your opinion.
I absolutely agree. I'm the mother of a son,
Right.
so I'm flipping the question a little bit, but I would
It's the same thing.
100% speak up.
Yep.
I think that, ultimately it's our children's choice of who they're going
Correct.
to marry, and you never want to cross the line where then their future spouse
Right.
hates you.
They hate you anyway.
No,
No, in your case, you were very lucky.
I
but-
am so
and I was
lucky.
too. But I think many daughter-in-laws today are pre-programmed to say whatever you
Wait,
want.
I don't think so at all.
No? All
Oh,
right.
I
Well,
think
I hope
a
you're
lot of
right.
people are close with their in-laws.
That's
and
good.
Do a lot.
I'm
of
happy to hear that that's a
Good.
changing trend
Yeah.
because the majority of people I know have strained relationships.
Yeah.
And I think that's very
I think it's sad,
unfortunate.
right.
And you have to know that these are the people that raised the person that
That
you
you
fell
love.
in love with.
Well, I think the strained relationships come when those people aren't already close with their family. Like if I know someone, not always obviously, but in the experience I've seen with my friends, if they're close with their parents, very rarely has a partner come in that's taken them away. If anything, I feel like if someone already kind of had a rocky relationship and then someone comes in, maybe it becomes more strained, but
No, it depends on backgrounds because
Yes.
I had my son. I'm just going to say something personal. His first wife really didn't want him to be close with his family or his friends, and there was nothing you could do, no matter what you did for this, young woman at the time, and she was young, was what she wanted to do. She wanted him to herself.
they broke up.
But they got married, so they did
Yeah.
break up. And I did say something, by
Yeah.
the way, prior to the marriage. And of course now, many years later, he says, you were right on the money. But when you're young, especially young, when you're in your 30s, you're no longer, hopefully you've got some sense. But when you're in your early 20s, be very careful. Listen to your elders, listen to your grandparents, listen to your parents. They've been around the road and they know what's going on. You might not like what they say, but you have to listen. And
And start early. I mean,
Right. Well, I
we made
agree
it
with
very clear to our son. I mean, I think maybe starting at age 5, about what our expectations
Right.
were.
Right.
It's first of all, it's very important to us that our son we're Jewish, and it's very important
Right.
to us that he marries someone Jewish. And he knows that and understands that. And I think that you model a relationship for your son, especially. I have an only child. My husband is an only child. And I hope that my son sees, and he has seen for 19 years, the love I have for my mother-in-law
Right.
and vice versa.
Right.
And I hope that I am paying it forward.
Right. So
And my son doesn't
they'll
get
take care
taken
of you,
away.
and then he won't throw you out into a nursing home.
Exactly. I don't want to be kicked to the curb.
And believe me, they do sometimes, unfortunately.
Last one. Someone said nail care for ladies of a certain age. Love you both.
Oh.
Yeah,
I
I
don't
feel like I just
Well,
I can't say.
I've always, I have good nails. So for those who are listening, I don't put much polish on it because
you always have a manicure.
I always have polish, but I don't. I used to love the reds and the pinks and all the different colors. But when you're in warm climates, they constantly are chipping. So I try to go the easiest way, usually with just a pale shade.
But you don't do any like.
I don't do any false nails or something.
Yeah.
No.
and also, you don't
No.
take any supplements for your nails
I
or
don't
your
take
hair.
any supplements for anything.
Yeah. You always
Neither
say a
do I.
vitamin makes you sick.
It just agitated something else. Just keep it natural. Keep it simple. Your
Yeah.
beauty routines.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say said this.
I know what you're gonna say. Actually, do I?
Her other grandmother. This is terrible. She was scratching.
This was yesterday.
Yes, scratched her ear and her sleep, and she woke up and she thought something went in her ear.
Oh,
And because I said to my daughter, this maybe a fly or something or a bug went in when you were eating outside. And she went to the local place here and said, "Oh my gosh, your nail is
my
in your
gosh.
ear." So
That might be a sign you need to do a
Well,
different kind of manicure.
no, those were those.
She must do acrylics.
Must do some kind of nail.
Right.
Yeah.
And so she was very lucky. They sent her to an ear, nose, and
Was
throat
it the
person.
whole nail?
I didn't ask, but it was part of
I
the
didn't
nail.
want to ask.
It was
you.
enough.
It was
Yeah.
enough that she was really not comfortable. So
So
for
bad.
those people, be very careful what you use and
Yeah.
make sure if you can to use your own nails, because I think a lot of those acrylics and the things that you put on top, especially the ones you buy in the drugstore, your own nails will be sacrificed in the end.
I totally agree with
Does
Grandma
Blushington
Gail.
do manicures?
We do not. And I will tell you, because we're looking to create convenience,
Mhm.
all under one roof,
Right.
I looked at it a few years ago before the pandemic,
Yeah.
found a great partner, prepared, tested it, and we weren't good at it.
Okay.
It's a completely different personnel, different
Right.
inventory.
Right.
And so I'm a big believer in you try it.
Yep.
If it works, you continue it. If
Right.
it doesn't, you turn the page.
Pivot.
Very
Totally
good.
agree. We're gonna do a quick round of Grandma Gail's old-fashioned dating quiz. So
We know where Natasha's falling.
we'll see whether you're more traditional or modern in your thinking when it comes to
Okay.
dating.
Okay.
Would you rather a call or a text from your husband if it's just to say hi?
A call. I love to hear his voice.
Oh, that's so nice. Would you sleep with someone on the first date?
Absolutely not. And can I expand
Oh,
on
sure.
that?
Absolutely.
Okay. I did not call my husband, initiate a call for the first 3 months of our 7-month courtship.
Wow.
Right.
And I know young women today don't like to hear this, but men like to hunt.
That's correct.
100%. My mom told me that when I started dating. She said, "Don't be so available. Men don't like it."
That's
Mhm.
right. Takes
And
the mystery
so,
away.
That's exactly right. And by the way, I'm married 23 years. You still have to have a little
Yeah.
mystery.
Yes,
You
exactly.
don't have to
Have it all hang out.
You have to have discovery all the time.
Mhm.
So
How do you do that?
well,
She's not going to give out all her secrets.
I won't give out all my secrets.
Just not
but you have
overshare or like.
No, we share everything, but there are also things that can be private. You don't have to, always give the nitty gritty.
Right.
He doesn't have to know when if she's waxing her legs.
That was exactly what I was thinking. I was thinking bikini wax.
I wasn't going to say that, but I was thinking
but
that.
But that's exactly what
it's the
truth.
truth.
Who doesn't need to know?
I don't want to know what he's doing, and I don't want him to know what I'm doing.
There you go. So I think that certain things can be kept private. And so I do think, I'll hear then from a young woman, she'll say, but I know this couple had sex on their first date and they got married.
But that's
to me, that is a huge exception.
Right.
And I would strongly recommend let the other person, whoever that person is, initiate.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think 3 months is of never being the one to text first. I don't know if that would happen now.
Maybe not.
I don't think so.
I don't think it would.
I don't think so. But there's, again, there's
so
much pressure.
There's so much pressure on making the date. Meanwhile, half the people can't make decisions now because they've got so much on their plate from so many different sources that maybe this one's better than that. This is it never ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I see them; they swipe so fast.
Exactly.
You might be missing the greatest guy in the
Exactly.
world.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Dating apps or setups?
I mean, I would say setup, but I'm not in the world of dating right now.
Like if your son went on a dating app, you would think.
I can't imagine my son on a dating app, but again, we'll see.
Don't know.
He has so many friends and he's so social, and I think there's something very special about maybe it's his age group, sort of the next age group coming up. But I would definitely say setup.
And I also think, in conversation about that, I think because our listeners are all different ages, they're mostly not 19-year-olds. I think dating apps are appropriate for older people as well that are not really in a university or in their first, they're in their early 20s. This is mature people that sometimes don't have an ability to meet people. So the dating apps have a place.
I'm going to completely disagree. I think they have a place, but I don't think it's for people who can't meet people organically.
But it's hard.
Because it's hard and it's an extra additional way. But I'm a very social person and I went on dating apps. Everyone I know who was single, I would be very shocked if they told me they weren't on apps.
Look, I'm so out of the loop on this. Right. I hear and I watch, and so maybe it's not. I mean, I think theoretically it's wonderful. Right. You can meet and discover, but I think it's how they're being used.
Right.
Yes.
This reject because they didn't have dark hair, they weren't tall enough, or they weren't this.
I agree.
When I was in my 20s, if I was asked out on a date or set up, I went. Yeah. It was one drink. It was one meal.
It's not the end of the world.
No. I operated that way.
Yeah, you did too.
Yeah.
Don't forget, you started really dating so much during COVID. And that was very different. It was just
to have a social life because otherwise you didn't know where to meet. There were no bars.
You couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that 4 years or 3 years, from 20 to 23, you can't sort of lump into normal dating.
No, you mean 2020?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I was in my freshly graduated, ready to date moment.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No.
Right.
And then it shut
I think
down.
it's different.
Yeah.
I think
it's also interesting for mature people. I mean,
I think it's very good for
your
mature
audience,
people.
But if you become a widower
Absolutely.
or a widow, I know
think
several people that have met online.
And they meet people because they really don't know how to do it. They're not going to go hang out in a bar.
No.
So this way they can do it with the least with the least amount of embarrassment. So I think it has its place.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right.
Okay, would you move in together before getting engaged or wait until you're engaged or married?
Absolutely not. What is the incentive to propose if you're already living together?
So you think engaged first?
Right.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Would one person pay for the date in a relationship or should you split, alternate?
I think I'm a real traditionalist.
Yeah, all of them
I think that I maybe fall in your alley.
So you're coming onto my side.
I think I'm on Grandma Gail's side on much of the dating.
Yeah.
And I think it's tried and true.
Right.
I mean,
It's been around forever and it's worked out well for most people.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll call you a traditional.
Definitely.
You can call me a traditionalist.
Do you have any questions for Grandma Gail? We always like to give our guests that opportunity.
I definitely have some questions.
Uh-oh.
I do. But I think, first of all, I have met your grandmother. It's been 23 years, and she's one of the most stunning women I have ever met.
Thank you, Natasha. You're very sweet.
And stylish and in the know, on everything, on current events, on news, on fashion. How do you do it?
Well, I read a lot.
What do you read?
I read all the papers. Except for the New York Times. I can't get the New York Times in my house anymore. My husband's put a prohibition on the New York Times.
Wait, do you want me to teach you how to do it on your phone?
I really like, goes back to an old-fashioned way. I like touching the paper. It's like reading a book. I still like reading a book versus my iPad. Now, I use my iPad all the time to play games, but I don't like to do it for either reading a novel or an autobiography, which I love to read about. But I do read the Post religiously. I read the Wall Street Journal every morning. So, and then I sneak occasionally and read on Sundays because I have to see if any of my people I know died. I do read the op-eds.
You go to the obituary section.
Immediately on Sunday. So that I have to sneak down and get the paper.
Well, she's like, I need to make sure I'm not dead.
Exactly.
You would know.
I don't know if you know. We don't know that. So
they're very strict about confirming it, by the way.
Yes, I'm sure. So I think that's where, and I really like to listen to different points of view. I was always an independent thinker. I was a history major. I loved politics all my life. I wanted to be a lawyer. That's the difference between my generation and the ones now, and I really do resent it a little bit. My mother said, you're going to get married. What? There's no career. You went to college. You got your degree. Now go get a husband. So that was just what it was. And I always wanted to, and I could have gone back, of course, which I didn't. But I always found it interesting to listen to all sides and then figure it out for myself. And I always say to Kimmy, it's not one side. Nobody's got all the answers. There's no politician who's got all the answers. There's no author that has all the answers. Probably the only thing that has all the answers is the Bible. No, it's probably the Bible, and we haven't read it so carefully, or that's why they argue about it all the time.
Right.
So I think that, Natasha's to answer that. You try to be well read on what's happening in the world. Because I think it makes you more interested. You can't go to a dinner party and sit there. Oh, what rouge are you wearing? I mean, who cares? But
people do that.
I know that. But
like I
wouldn't be able to sit still for 3 seconds.
Exactly. You have to have a point of view on what's happening in the world, and whatever it is, whatever point you want to say, as long as you understand what you're saying. Don't quote somebody that you don't agree with. Mm-hmm. Sort of feel your way through life, and I think you make yourself a more interesting person.
And I think you're a fashion icon.
Well, that's only become because I've always loved fashion, but I've never. Well, my parents were in the fashion business, so I have to say that I always had it. We always were. My father had a large company with different brands and different licensees, and they were very famous. And I always saw what looked good. But what my mother always taught me, and my mother was a beautiful woman, she said, wear what looks good on you. Don't wear what looks good on Audrey Hepburn, who's 6 feet tall, has no bust, and it is built like a straight column. And is gorgeous, but that's not your figure. You have an hourglass figure. Wear what looks good on you. So I always think about my mother when I go into a store and I try something on. Would my mother say that looks good on me?
I love that.
Because it's true. It's true. You have to, I have a granddaughter who's 5'10", and I have a granddaughter who's 5'2", and one that's growing up that's bigger than me already. Each has a different body type. So look at what it is and see what, looks good on you. There's no point in fitting into something else that isn't your look.
But that's not so common to
have
that self-awareness.
But you have to try.
Commitment.
You have to try.
Or you know your body type, but you don't know what looks good on you.
Well, but after a while, you should. No, but you like to listen to what other people tell you. You've got everybody ask you, should I wear the black dress? Should I wear the blue dress? Should I wear the brown jacket? That's your shtick. You know what looks good on you. And the truth is that's what makes people always wear the same kind of, well, first of all, everybody should wear a little black dress. Everybody's closet should have a little black dress, and right from there, and wear a heel that is appropriate. I think you find your style, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your style today, but you'll grow into it, believe me.
And Natasha, you said you were very close with your grandmother as
Yes.
well. Is there any piece of advice she gave you that kind of sticks with you?
Well, she was really exceptional. So I think I have to give you a quick background so that you understand the context. But she came during the Second World War. She escaped Nazi Germany and had no high school education, worked in a hat factory, made $40 a month, and got married. But she was really took a very different path. When she was 30 and she had had both my father and my uncle, she went and got a high school degree, a college degree, and a PhD in biology.
Wow.
See, but that's
And
the
very
American
unusual.
dream. That's the American dream.
It sure
I keep
was.
saying that. That's why we're so lucky to live in this wonderful country.
Yes. And she was on an airplane, fell in love, just like my parents. They were on an airplane, divorced my grandfather, which was unheard
Which is unheard of in those days.
Unheard of. This was unheard of. And it was the love of her life. And when she lost him, she moved to New York and she became a professor at NYU in her 70s. Started bridge in her 80s.
Right.
Learned how
She
to
was
play the
very smart.
piano, and at 95 published a book.
Oh my gosh.
So
She
the
was really
advice
a woman
she
of
was-
valor.
the advice was never give up. That sticks with me. Never give up and enjoy your life. You know, she lived through so much tragedy and so much hardship, and yet she had this optimism, and we drank a lot of champagne together.
Nice.
So,
I love
yes, but
Wow.
she, take a glass of champagne and enjoy your life, but always be learning and never give up.
I
That's a
love
good
that.
way to end
Wow.
saying
Amazing.
it.
Natasha, thank you for joining us today. Tell everyone how they can follow you online or anything else you want them to
Well,
know.
thank you so much for having
We
me,
loved
and
it.
congratulations on what
Thank
you've
you.
built. You can find Blushington online at blushington.com. You can find us on Instagram at Blushington. And for all our franchisees that are opening their own stores, we have Blushington_Boca, Blushington_ Houston, and I can't wait to have you find us all over the country.
Same. We have to go together
Boca.
soon.
Boca.
Yeah,
Road
the
trip.
Road trip.
Road trip.
Yeah.
Road trip.
And you can follow us at Excuse My Grandma or me at Kim Merstein. You can watch the video on YouTube or Spotify, listen on Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll see you next time.